If you follow me on Instagram at Courtney Austin Page, you know that yoga is a huge part of my life and how much I absolutely adore the studio that I teach at here in Delray Beach, Florida. Dandy Light Studio and Bistro offer so many different types of classes and experience for every level of yogi. They also have incredible workshops going on all the time, like sound baths, Reiki, acro yoga, and more. The Bistro is filled with homemade treats by the studio's owner and authentic French pastries from Delray's top-rated bakery, Maison Bouchard. All of the boutique goodies will definitely raise your vibration. Candles, sage, clothing made from all sustainable fashion lines, and so much more. This gem is like a mecca for your soul. Located right next to Pineapple Grove in the heart of downtown Delray Beach, head into Dandylight for some respite from the ruckus. Go to dandylight.com and follow them on Instagram at dandylight_studio to sign up for one of their amazing classes. Can't wait to see you there. Welcome to Resume the Podcast. I'm your host, Courtney Page, and I'm here to spread the message that you can, in fact, be happy in your career. I'm a former executive recruiter turned career coach, and I am obsessed with learning about why people have chosen their career, what led them to that decision, and how they achieved happiness in the process. So, come join the ongoing conversation that exposes you to career paths of all origins with one thing in common: happiness. So, press play and let's resume the conversation with this week's episode. Welcome to Resume the Podcast. Our guest today is Barbara Briggs. She is a poet, podcaster, and author of 2 books. She is also a certified consciousness advisor. She has over 20 years experience as a freelance journalist and has had numerous articles and essays published in both print and online media. A practitioner and teacher of Transcendental Meditation for over 30 years, Barbara hosts a bi-monthly podcast called The Essence of Life, which has a rapidly growing audience. She is also a YouTuber with a channel called Living Wisdom. She holds a bachelor's degree in philosophy from NYU and a master's degree in curriculum development from the Maharishi International University. She was also on the faculty of Maharishi the Maharishi University of Natural Law in England, where she developed courses on poetry, as well as on art, creativity, and consciousness. I am so excited that you're here, Barbara. I know you've been so flexible in scheduling because it's been a little crazy, but I'm so glad that you're finally here, coming to us from India, where it is quite late, I know. But thank you so much for being here.
It's my pleasure. I'm happy to speak to you.
Thank you. So I like to start off by asking everybody, if you were at a dinner party or if you were out meeting new people somewhere and somebody came up to you and asked you, "What do you do, Barbara?" What would you respond with?
I'm a writer. I'm basically a writer. I've written 2 books which have been published. I'm almost finished with my 3rd book. I also have a YouTube channel in which I share knowledge related to self-awareness, self-knowledge. And I also have a podcast which is devoted to answering the eternal questions about life, such as what is the purpose of life? Why am I here? How can I find lasting happiness? So my joy is sharing knowledge and spiritual knowledge, which can help people develop their awareness and help them to live more fulfilling lives. So that's basically what I do.
And what are people's responses usually when you hit them with something so deep and profound to such kind of like a off the cuff question of, "What do you do?" And you come back with this like great answer. What do you get normally as a response?
Well, it depends who I'm speaking to, of course. If they're sincerely interested, then they might ask me more questions about my work, or they might ask me about my YouTube channel or which books I've written. But it depends on the person, what their level of interest is. I can't really say what everyone would answer, what everyone would feel. It depends on the person, of course, because beauty is in the eyes of the beholder, and perception of anything is in the eyes of the beholder. So it really depends on their awareness as to how they take that answer.
Yeah, that's a great answer. I want to dive into all of the different mediums that you work in, but I want to start with what you wanted to be as a kid, because I think meditation and consciousness is such a high level concept that I'm not sure how or when that comes up for somebody. And I'm always interested to know when people are very entrenched in it as an adult, what they were like as children. So what did you want to be when you were a kid?
I wanted to be an actress for a few years, but my mother told me I would make a better teacher. I was writing stories when I was 10 years old. I was writing children's stories from the age of 10 or 12. So I've been writing for many years. It was just part of my nature. I was a very introverted child. I spent a lot of time alone, and I read many books, many very large novels, Dostoevsky and Tolstoy. And I read many books. And I was a dancing student, and I studied acting when I was growing up, as well as going to school and all my normal academic activities. So I was writing already, and then I wanted to be an actress, but that wasn't really my forte. And so, no, well, my mother encouraged me to be a teacher. She thought I would make a very good. So it was just between teaching and, the other things were extracurricular activities, but I always excelled in writing. Mm-hmm. Even in high school, I was writing a lot. And then I majored in philosophy because I wanted to delve into the eternal questions about life, which I had asked myself as I was growing up. I was asking myself, what's the real purpose? Why are we here? Why do I see so much suffering around me? And how can it be alleviated? So I grew up in New York City, and I saw many things which were painful to see. Many people were taking drugs, and it was very unfortunate to see people in such a bad state on the streets of New York. And I questioned myself about why this is happening. So I always was an introvert, and I was always seeking answers to some of the things I saw around me. Mm-hmm. So it was part of my nature, really, to go into philosophy. And when I was in college and university, at that time, I was reading more spiritual books, and I was also reading the biographies of great artists and great thinkers. And this also strengthened my desire to know what the real meaning of life was and what was to be my path. And so it led me towards spirituality. It just led me in that direction naturally.
Yeah, such a great answer. And as you're talking, I'm wondering, I think at some point, everybody comes up against that question, why am I here? What is my purpose? And it's such a big question that we all tackle at some point. Around what age were you when you started to ask those questions? Because it sounds like you were much younger than the average person asking that question.
Yes, I was about 16 when I started asking myself, 16 or 17.
Yeah, was that brought on by... I mean, I know you said that you grew up in New York. I spent some time in New York too. I lived there for maybe 5 years or so. Was there a specific incident that kind of prompted that question? Or was it just an accumulation of being in that environment and seeing so many different, I mean, New York is such an incredible city, but there is so much, suffering that happens there as well. I'm just curious to know if there was a specific incident that you saw or something like that kind of spawned that question.
Well, there were two different things. One was when I was about 15, I was just finishing my junior high school, 14 or 15. And at that time, I wanted to be an actress. Yeah. And I auditioned for the High School of Performing Arts or something. And I didn't get accepted. I really wasn't meant for that role. And then I went with my best friend, who was Japanese, half American. And she asked me to take the test for Bronx High School of Science because she wanted to get into the science school. And she just wanted me to come with her. So I came with her and I took the test. It turned out that I got into Bronx High School and she got into High School of Art and Music or something.
Oh my gosh.
So, so it was just a kind of quirk of fate. And I was so unhappy when I didn't get into that school. I thought that was my highest desire at that time. And I was so sad. I was so unhappy. And then I wrote an essay and I just thought, what am I going to do? How will my life be resurrected from this disappointment? And I really questioned myself. And when I went into the Bronx High School of Science, I was in a special writing class. And I think the teacher might have asked us to do a kind of search inside and something about our life. And that was when I wrote the essay about my life and what was the real purpose of my life. And what was the direction I was meant to take. And I really wrote this from a very deep level. And I came to the conclusion that I was supposed to reach some level of awareness in which everything would come together into a kind of awakening. I felt that there was something that I was going to aspire to, a kind of unified experience would come in my life. And the sun and the moon would radiate. Something I wrote in that essay, it was quite powerful. And then that was one thing. From the disappointment, I kind of resurrected myself into a new idea of what I was meant to do. And it had nothing to do with acting or anything like that. It was more of a spiritual direction. The other thing that really affected me deeply was when I was going to New York University. And that was it. I had to pass through Washington Square Park on my way to my university. And once I was just walking through the park on the way to my classes, and I saw a man lying in the street, completely, he looked like he was dying or whatever. He was just laying there. Either it was an overdose of drugs or alcohol or something, but he was laying completely out on the ground. And people were just walking past as if it wasn't even the time of day. I mean, they were just walking past as if absolutely nothing unusual was being seen. But when I saw it, it affected me so deeply, I felt like I was going to faint. And I had to hold on to the gate in the park to keep myself upright. Wow. And I just thought, my God, why is everybody walking past? He looks like he's dying or he's in his last throes. And I just couldn't face the fact that no one cared at all and no one even paid attention to it. And I just sat down on a bench or something and I just felt completely devastated. I felt like, what is this? Why is this happening? And why isn't anyone even stopping? And what is this all about? Why is life like this? And it kind of really affected me a lot. I felt that there had to be more to life than this. And there had to be something more that could be done on this earth that would not allow such things to be just ignored in such a way to just have complete non-attention to something that looked stark and very heart-rending. Yeah. So that was another experience that I had. It was like that because in Manhattan, I did see many things which hurt me very deeply. I grew up in Harlem. Harlem is a neighborhood in Manhattan. And there were many people who were drug addicts and things like that. And I just felt they're wasting their lives. Yeah. And I just couldn't accept what I was seeing all around me. And I felt that something has to be done on some level. I didn't know what, but I couldn't really accept that this was what life was supposed to be like. So
yeah, that's so interesting. And I can, in a small way, relate to that a little bit, having lived in New York. And I can see that whole scene play out. I mean, just with the homelessness issue, and it's sort of just part of life there. And people do kind of just walk around it and turn a blind eye. And if you're a sensitive person, it can be really almost traumatic to see that oblivious non-attention, as you said, to something so dire. So thank you. Yeah, I'm always curious to know when people have a pull towards something like philosophy or spirituality, you know, what their background was and how they wrestled with things like that and what brought them to spirituality. So thank you for that. I am interested also to know, after NYU, did you stay in New York or did you travel? I know you've done a lot of traveling. You were in London at some point. Now you're in India. I'm doing a little bit of research on you. I think your mom is Austrian. Is that right?
Yes.
Yeah. So you have quite an international blueprint. After NYU, where did you go?
I did want to leave America. I had a strong desire to leave America. I thought it wasn't really my country. There were too many social divisions, and I felt that people were too alienated from each other, and they were only able to see the surface value of other people. Everybody was categorized into a box, depending on their surface characteristics. And I never fit into any of the boxes because I never adopted those ideologies. I never fit into anybody's preconceived idea of who I was or what I was. Mm-hmm. So I was always on the outside of that categorization. that compartmentalization, which happens
Yes.
in America so much. So after I left, I taught in a progressive school for high school dropouts in America near the tower, that big tower that was bombed in 9/11, that
The
area
Twin
in New York
Towers.
City. Yeah, I taught in that area.
Oh, the financial district.
Yeah, I taught near that area. It wasn't really Wall Street, but it was near that area. I taught in a progressive school for high school dropouts. And I taught philosophy, poetry, creative writing, and public speaking. And it was a nice experience after I'd finished my degree. And I was trying to earn some money so that I could go abroad. And I taught in that school for 1 year. And during that time, I made plans to leave America. I was planning to do my PhD actually but the university I applied for didn't have the course I really wanted, which was philosophy of art. So I had already made my mind up that I wasn't going to stay in America. After I found out I couldn't go to the university, I auditioned for a dancing school in London. An audition was held in New York for the London School of Contemporary Dance, and I was accepted. I auditioned and I was accepted at the London School. So my desire to live abroad was fulfilled, but I went through a different path. Then I became a full-time dancing student after 1 year at the school.
That's so okay. So I love this. I love when career paths are like windy because I feel like that's much more normal than people realize. And we kind of have this idea that it's very linear, and it's so not. So after you're in London, you're dancing, you're out of America. How did you continue on your career path? Were you solely focused on dancing, or were you also still pursuing philosophy and spirituality?
Well, what happened was when you're destined to go on a certain path, everything in the universe gets designed to place you on the road that you're meant to go on. So after 2 months at the school, I left, I think in August or July, and then I started school in October, or even a little earlier. A few weeks after I entered my school, I was reading a book on by Uspensky, In Search of the Miraculous. I was reading that in my spare time. And then afterwards, there was a passage about experiencing the finer levels of music, the finer levels of sound. And I went to my percussion teacher in the school and I said, is there a way that we can experience these subtle levels of sound? And he said, you should go to a lecture on Transcendental Meditation. And so my music teacher in school, he instructed me to go to the lecture on Transcendental Meditation. And so I liked him very much. He was a very sensitive person and very nice. And I went to the lecture at Imperial College in London the following weekend or something. And I was very convinced by the scientific evidence which the lecturer produced about the benefits of the Transcendental Meditation technique. It's actually one of the most highly scientifically verified techniques for development of life in the whole world. There have been more than 700 different scientific studies done in 31 different countries and 300 different research institutes and universities around the world. So even at that time when I started, which was many years ago, there were studies which had been published in Scientific American magazine. And I was very impressed by the studies. And I thought, this will definitely help my dancing because it's faster reaction time, better mind-body coordination, more synchrony and coherence between the right and left and the back and front of the brain, and all these different studies. And so I thought, yes, I think I will start this technique. So I did start it the following week. And I found out after the third meeting, after I learned the technique, I found out in the third day of checking, you gain more knowledge based on your experience. And each day you gain a different level of knowledge. And on the last meeting, you learn about higher states of consciousness. So in the last meeting of my Transcendental Meditation technique course, I learned about enlightenment and the development of higher states of consciousness. And then I knew that the technique was actually a spiritual technique and it was a spiritual path. And then I found out more about it. And then I heard many lectures by Maharishi Mahesh Yogi, who's pictured behind me. And I began to understand the more and more of this path, that it was really founded on a very deep level of knowledge, and that Maharishi was one of the most enlightened saints in the world that had imparted so much knowledge about so many different aspects of life. And then on top of that, a few months later, I became very good friends with my teacher who initiated me into TM. And then he introduced me to Maharishi a few months later. Maharishi came to London to give a
Wow.
talk at Royal Albert Hall, a huge venue in London, a very famous venue. And after the lecture, my teacher took me upstairs to meet Maharshi. And I went to Maharshi's room.
Yeah.
There were about 30 or 40 people there. And I was sitting there. When I stood up to go, Maharshi looked directly at me. And I felt in that moment, he knew everything about me and everything you could possibly know. I felt completely transparent to his gaze. And I felt like it was the first time in my entire life that anyone had really seen me. And this is what I had desired so deeply when I lived in America. I thought, why can't anyone see anyone else? All they can see is the surface level, and this isn't even really me. And they can't see anything of who I really am. And this bothered me so much while living in America because it was so superficially oriented to the body and to nothing else.
Yeah.
And so when Maharshi looked at me, I felt such deep fulfillment in my heart that it was the first time anyone had ever seen who I really was. And it was completely not judgmental. It was just pure seeing. And I felt that immediately as soon as he gazed at me. And it was a beautiful experience and unforgettable. So,
wow. When you say that you felt that he saw you, what was happening in your body? Like, was there a physical reaction or was it all mental, emotional?
no, it was a knowingness. I felt it immediately when he looked at me. I never had that experience. Since then, I've had it several times. I've met other saints in India. They've all had that ability to see right through the person. And I felt they all know very deeply. Their knowledge can just zoom right into the inner being of someone and know all about them. So that's a quality of that enlightened state of awareness. But I felt when Maharshi looked at me, I did feel it was the first time anyone had ever really seen me in my life. And it was an extremely fulfilling experience. And also because it was non-judgmental, I didn't feel that, of course, we've done things which we wouldn't like everyone to be able to see and to know. It might be something maybe that we didn't feel so happy about. But on the other hand, when a saint looks at you, he never judges you. It's just pure seeing. So I can't really describe it, but it was a knowingness. I knew that was happening the moment it happened.
Wow. That's incredible. Wow. Yeah. So going off of that TM, Transcendental Meditation, I'm glad that you brought it up because I wanted to ask you about it. I've heard of it. And I think in America, there are some like celebrities that have talked about it. And what is the difference? Like what makes Transcendental Meditation? I know you mentioned that there's a lot of scientific evidence that supports it, but how is it in practice? How is it different than sitting and breathing, like your kind of run-of-the-mill meditation if you're just sitting and breathing and practicing breath work or whatnot?
It's totally different than sitting and breathing. There have been studies which have shown that the metabolic process and the changes that go on in the physiology and in the entire functioning of the whole body is dramatically different than what happens when you just sit and just close your eyes and just think about something or other. It's a completely different process. The Transcendental Meditation is a unique practice. It's a simple, natural, and effortless mental technique, which is practiced with 20 minutes twice a day, sitting with the eyes closed. The unique aspect of Transcendental Meditation is that it's effortless. It does not involve concentration. Most other techniques of meditation involve concentration. That means, for instance, holding your mind on a particular object, staring at a candle, staring at a picture, or holding your mind so that it doesn't move at all. Now, this is like I'm using an analogy. It's like treading water. If you're in the water and you keep trying to stay in one place, you know how much energy that takes and how difficult it is to stay in one place. Treading water is very difficult. I have tried that and it uses a lot of energy. And that's why many people find that, I'm not suited to meditation. I can't do it. It's too hard.
Yeah.
Because it's meditation which involves effort is difficult because it's the natural tendency of the human mind to want to go to a field of greater happiness, greater intelligence, greater fulfillment. And holding the mind on one narrow boundary will never be very fulfilling. So Transcendental Meditation does not involve effort. Secondly, other meditation techniques involve contemplation. That means thinking about an elevating idea or a phrase or something which can inspire you. So that's like swimming on the surface of the water, swimming back and forth from one idea to another, love, peace, happiness, joy, unbounded freedom, whatever. But what the difference is with Transcendental Meditation is it's taking a dive to the depth of the ocean. So if the mind is usually used to functioning on the surface level of the thinking process, and what happens when we meditate is we use a mantra, and a mantra is a vehicle to turn the attention inward. Normally, the mind is so used to directing its attention outward through the five senses that it's habituated to always looking out. And so we need a vehicle to actually turn the attention in the inward direction. And we use a mantra for this. It comes from the ancient Vedic tradition of knowledge, from which Transcendental Meditation comes from. And the vehicle is the mantra. We just take the correct angle and the dive is automatic. And the reason why it's so automatic is because the mind has the natural tendency, everyone's mind has a natural tendency to move in the direction of greater happiness. Everyone wants more out of life. No one wants less. No one wants less intelligence, less happiness, less energy. Everyone wants more.
Right.
And as we move in the direction of unbounded awareness, we're moving in the direction of Satchit Ananda, eternal consciousness of bliss. Pure consciousness is the most settled, least excited state of awareness. It's a state of awareness at the depths of the human mind. And that dive toward the inner, more quiet, silent levels of the mind happens automatically with the mantra. It just happens automatically. And the mind gravitates toward that field of unbounded awareness, because unbounded awareness or pure consciousness is a state of awareness free from limitation, free from all boundary. That's why it's called unbounded awareness. And in the Vedic terminology, it's called a field of Satchit Ananda, eternal consciousness of bliss. So that's why it's very easy to practice. We even teach children from the age of 10 to meditate. They only meditate for about 10 minutes, but I've taught children they can meditate immediately, spontaneously. I even taught someone who was over 100 years old in America many years ago.
Oh, wow.
He also learned to meditate. So it doesn't take any particular thing. Anyone who can think a thought can meditate. And I've never met anyone who couldn't think a thought. Most people have more thoughts than they know what to do with.
Right.
So it's a very simple and natural process. So that's how it's different from other techniques. And it's also the most scientifically verified technique for the holistic development of life in the world. There have been more scientific studies that show that the Transcendental Meditation technique has immeasurable benefits, not only from development of mental potential, for increasing health and preventing disease and strengthening immunity and all the different parameters. It decreases high blood pressure. It decreases the workload on the heart. It decreases hospitalizations and strokes, and it increases the synchrony and coherence between the different aspects of the brain, the right and left hemisphere, the back and front of the brain. They become more coherent. It increases self-actualization, and it also increases harmony in social relationships and increases job performance. It also has implications for creating world peace.
Wow.
Because actually, there was a study done in 1978 which showed that when there were at least 1% of a population in a city practicing transcendental meditation regularly, the accident rate, the crime rate, and the hospital admissions in the city decreased
Wow.
because of the increase of orderliness in the city. So transcendental meditation increases orderliness, and the orderliness in the human brain spreads. And that's how it alleviates the disorderly tendencies in a city or in an environment. And that's how the crime rate was decreased as a result of a large percentage of people meditating. So you can see the far-reaching benefits.
Absolutely. Yeah. And something that you said, and this is one of the more minute details that you brought up, but it just kind of caught my ear. Why is it 20 minutes twice a day? Do you know why it's broken up like that?
They found out that it's good to balance the meditation periods. So you meditate in the morning before you go to work, or when you wake up, you take a bath, whatever, and then you meditate. And then you have about 6 to 8 hours of work during the day. And then you want to enjoy your evening activities. But before you engage in your evening activities, you meditate again for 20 minutes. And then you have your evening in a much more enjoyable fashion. You don't carry the stress of the day into your evening activities. So they found that the 2 20-minute periods were very well balanced to give people that energy for the day and also to give you a good pep up before the evening. And also actually I've been meditating as for many years. You can have a longer meditation after a certain period. There are advanced programs, and there's an advanced program which you can participate in after a few months of meditating. And so you can have a longer meditation period if time allows, and if you can do it regularly. So in the beginning, when Maharishi introduced it, it was only 20 minutes twice a day. Now, many people are doing much more than that by choice.
Yeah.
So it depends on your schedule. You shouldn't just change it from one day to another, only if your time schedule allows you to do the same amount of period of time on a regular basis. Then you can always find out about the alternatives for a longer meditation.
Interesting. Yeah. And so if you start on a TM program, or if you start, how long does it typically take for I don't want to say results because that makes it sound, I don't know, but how long does how long does it take to kind of feel it?
No, you feel it from the very first sitting because it's so natural. It doesn't take any effort. It's not like you have to practice it or anything like that. It's not like practicing an instrument because your nervous system is the gift and everyone has the ability to transcend. That's the unique characteristic of the human nervous system, self-referral consciousness. You can refer back to yourself and know who you really are, and that's pure consciousness. Consciousness can become conscious of itself. It's a very simple and natural process. In fact, the state of pure consciousness Maharishi has called it the simplest state of human awareness. It's the very simplest state of human awareness. We usually complicate things so much, but there's a simplest state. It's very easy to get to. It's easy to get to. It's simple, natural, and effortless. So it doesn't take any practice. You have the results from the very first sitting of meditation. And you can transcend from the very first sitting of meditation. It's not like you have to wait to do it. You can come in and be totally skeptical and you still have the experience because it doesn't depend on belief. It doesn't depend on lifestyle. It doesn't depend on diet. It doesn't depend on religion. It doesn't depend on any of these things. It simply depends on the ability to think a thought. If you can think a thought, you can transcend thought. You can also transcend and experience quieter levels of the thinking process. And you can transcend thought completely. That's ingrained in the human nervous system. It doesn't take any special ability.
That's so incredible.
You don't have to wait for it to happen because it doesn't take effort. There's no effort involved. The course itself, you can learn in less than a week. First, you have the introductory talk in which the teacher tells you the benefits in 4 areas of life: mental potential, health, social behavior, and world peace. That's the benefits. The second step is the preparatory talk in which you learn about how it's different from other techniques, which I've told you a bit about already.
Yes.
And you learn about the tradition from which it stems. It stems from the Vedic tradition of knowledge, and Maharishi's teacher was the latest custodian in that tradition. And he was the Shakracharya of Jyotirmoth in the Himalaya, Maharishi's. So it comes from that Vedic tradition, a very ancient tradition of knowledge. It wasn't just thought up in the 20th century. And then that's the second step. The third step is the personal interview with the teacher, in which you can ask any personal questions that you might not have asked in the group. And you fill out a form and you take a time for personal instruction. The fourth step is personal instruction on a one-to-one basis with the teacher. It takes about an hour. You learn the practice. You learn directly from the teacher. You cannot learn from a book. And then there are 3 follow-up meetings, steps 5, 6, and 7. And each day you get more knowledge based on your experiences during the practice of meditation. Each day has a specific area of knowledge which we cover, how stresses are released, all the different experiences that can come up during your meditation, and how to deal with them. The process of stress release in the body. How does it happen? How is it related? How does the whole process, the mechanics of stress release? And on the last meeting, we go into higher states of consciousness, the development of higher states of consciousness. So that's the package, and you can do it in less than a week.
And where is this? This is
that's the whole practice that I told you, the introductory talk, the preparatory talk, and the personal interview. That can be done on one day.
Okay.
And then you have step 4, the personal instruction. And then you have the 3 follow-up meetings, which have to be done on consecutive days. So
Okay.
let's say you had the introductory talk on a Thursday and you had the prep on the same day and then you had the interview. And then let's say you were initiated on Saturday and then would have to come back on Sunday, Monday, and Tuesday for an hour and a half each day.
Okay.
Okay. And so that's the whole course.
Right. And I'm just wondering where you did this course.
I did in London.
In London.
I learned in London. I learned in London when I was a student at the dancing school.
Right. Okay. And so it's offered in different institutions around the world.
Yeah, the Transcendental Meditation technique is offered in every major city in every country in the world.
Okay.
There are 10 million people practicing it in over 100 countries around the world. And all you have to do is go online for Transcendental Meditation in your city. Where are you located?
I'm in South Florida, so closest to Miami.
Florida.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, there are teachers in Florida. There are TM centers in Florida.
Yeah.
And there are TM centers in every major city in the world, especially in America.
Yeah.
Centers.
I've been hearing so much more about it just in the last maybe couple of years. I feel like first there was work-life balance and meditation. And then I think during the pandemic, when everybody was at home, there was, so many awful things were happening. But one silver lining of all that, I think a lot of people did start to meditate or at least become more aware of what it is. And then through that, I started anyway to learn more about it and just see it just come up randomly in life. So that's so interesting. Yeah, I've been wanting to look into it. And so I'm so glad that you decided to come on and talk to us about it. I do want to ask you really quickly about the Maharishi University and your time there. And can you explain, because the reason I bring it up is because I want to hear your story about it. But I think if anyone's listening who hasn't seen this, there's an incredible speech that Jim Carrey does as I guess he was kind of like the keynote speaker at the Maharishi graduation during 1 year or something. And that was where I first heard of it. But can you tell us a little bit about the Maharishi University and how, just looking it up in preparation for this, it's so interesting. And I'm curious to know what you studied there. And I believe you were also in the faculty. Is that correct?
No, I was in the faculty in England at Maharishi University of Natural Learning.
Yeah.
I was a student. I did my master's degree at Maharishi International University many years ago. And it was quite an experience. Everyone's meditating there. There's the faculty, the students, and the staff. Everyone practices Transcendental Meditation. And the sessions we meditated in a group. There was a dome. There were domes for meditation. So they built special dome-shaped buildings where the men meditated in one building, the ladies meditated in another building. And I was also doing the advanced program of the yogic flying. And the dancing
cool.
For that. I was a student there for 2 years and I did my master's in curriculum development. It was quite an experience. I'd never experienced anything quite like that. It was quite a powerful place to be because everyone's meditating. And it was in the middle of the country, so there wasn't any pollution around or anything. It was a newly constructed campus. They bought the campus, but they constructed some new building on the campus. It was quite a enlivening experience. It was unusual experience. It was an important part of my life, the 2 years I spent there. And it was good.
Yeah.
It was an interesting experience for me. As I've never been in an environment like that. After that, I did live in a meditating community in England as I'd been meditating, and I had my master's, and then I went to England, and I lived in the meditating community in the north of England for several years. And that's when I took the faculty training course to teach Vedic science and to teach the courses which I developed there. So I've lived in those meditating communities, both in America and in England. And they're quite interesting places to live.
Yeah, I can imagine. And I can imagine it would be difficult to have lived in such a community that is so high frequency and so accepting and beautiful. And then to come out of that into the world and where everyone isn't meditating every day and there isn't that. I imagine that might be kind of a difficult transition. Is that true? Or did you feel like you were fine coming out of a meditation community into the world to then end up in?
Well, when you've been meditating many years, as I have, you can feel comfortable I feel very comfortable in India. I'm not in a meditating community. There's no one meditating in where I live in India. Really, I have no meditating friends near me. There are no other teachers near me, and there isn't a meditating community in this place in India. And I've lived in India almost 20 years now, and I haven't lived in a meditating community, but there is a very large ashram in India, which is a wonderful place. And I try to go there at least once a year. I couldn't go there during the years of the pandemic. But then I have all teachers. There are many teachers and meditators come and they meditate together. It's an international course. So it's a beautiful experience to meet all my friends again and to be with all the meditators again. But I can say that I feel totally comfortable living in India, as it is a spiritual country and as it does have that vibration of spirituality ingrained in the very soil of it. And I feel that the people here are so warm and friendly and so open-hearted, and they're so welcoming to everyone that I don't feel isolated. I feel very happy here. I decided to make India my permanent home because I actually feel much happier here than I do in either America or England. So I don't miss what I left behind. I feel this is a progression, a natural progression in my life. And I'm very focused on my work here. I'm able to do my work without taking any other job. And I don't have to struggle so much for money as I would in England or America. And people are more accepting. It really is Vasudev Kutumbakam, the world is my family. That's a motto from the Indian Vedic literature. And I feel that the people here really do have that ability to accept people as part of their family. And I feel that love around me. And I feel this is really my country. I feel this is my country and my world. It's like Maharishi felt that you should be able to go anywhere and do anything and achieve anything after a certain point in your life. Nothing should be a boundary to you. And I do feel that I can go anywhere and I can feel comfortable. And nature has led me to the place that I'm meant to be. Your destiny is designed by the cosmic computer. And it's not like you just choose where it's life chooses you. The place chooses you because it's where you're meant to be. And everyone's put in the place that's most evolutionary for them. So many times I thought of going back to Europe or living in another facility that Maharishi has in Holland. But I tried many times. It wasn't the right path and it never opened up. And everything in India was always saying yes. So it was definitely the path I was meant to go in. It was the choice of the cosmic computer. And I was just following the destiny I was meant to follow. That's how I feel about it.
And that's so interesting because, well, you said something that everything in India was yes. And I think what you're getting at is just intuition and understanding your intuition and listening and hearing it, which I think is really difficult to do, especially if you're new to learning about intuition, or it's just really difficult for some people have an easier time hearing it than others. What were the yeses?
Well, the first yes, well, I did go to England 3 times before I decided to move all my luggage from England on a boat to India, which I did in 2001. Well, I'd been to India several times because I was in the flying competition. We had to go to India. Maharishi invited everyone who was in the medals to be in the flying to come to India and to be with him. And then that was my first trip. And then my second trip, I came to learn sitar in Shimla. I met a sitarist, and she came to the community, the meditating community in England. And I asked if I could take lessons with her, and she said yes. And I went to Shimla to study sitar. Then my third time, I came to India to study Sanskrit. Maharishi had encouraged us to learn Sanskrit. So I tried it at MIU, but I wasn't satisfied with the teaching of Sanskrit there. And so I decided to go to India to study Sanskrit, and I went to Varanasi. So, and then after that, in 2001, my first book was published in Delhi. And then I came to India, and then I decided in 2001 that I would just come and live in India. I was living in England. I was teaching Transcendental Meditation in a community in England, but not many people were learning. And I felt it was really the right place for me to be. On top of it, I was in a very good neighborhood in south of England. And then someone in my building was taking drugs, and there was a bust, and the police came in the middle of the night. After that, I decided, okay, that's it. I'm leaving. I'm going back to India. So then afterwards, I applied for a visa for 5 years. And usually these visas are only given to people who are either married to an Indian or they have some connection in their parental background to India. But I applied for the 5-year visa and I said I was going to India for my spiritual life and I wanted to live there. And the High Commissioner gave me the 5. It was just like unbelievable. And then
So
he
that,
told
yeah,
me on
that's
the
like a
telephone,
big yes. That's a big
and that was
universe
a big
yes.
yes, because I had decided I was going and it was a huge yes. And then he called me on the telephone after he'd given me the visa and he said, "Oh, I wasn't really supposed to give visa. It's against."
Oh my gosh.
And then I said, "It's obviously God's way to go." And then he just said, "Yes, I hope you."
Wow.
So that was
Wow.
a very big yes. So that's what I mean by the yeses. And then on top of it, but I had to ship all my luggage from England and I had so many books and, well, my sitar and everything. And then I was going to put it on a ship and then I was loading my things up in it, trying to see what I should throw away in my house. And then I spoke to the man who was in charge of the ship and he said, "Oh, take whatever you want. We won't charge you anything extra."
Wow. Wow. Yeah. It's so
I ended up
interesting.
thinking, yes, that's what I mean by the yeses. You see what I mean? That's what I
Yeah.
mean by the yeses. It wasn't psychological. It was actually physical. It was actually happening.
Yeah.
So I took books that I should have taken. I took many more things that I should have taken because he said yes. So many challenging things happened to me after I got to India, and I won't go into all of those. But it was really quite amazing, everything that happened after I got there. But anyway, I did get many yeses. And this is what I mean. I live my life completely by my inner voice, as you could probably guess. I live by my intuition, of course. And if you want to learn more about intuition, I have 2 videotapes on my YouTube channel. Intuition, the language of the heart, and Enliven Your Intuition. You can see those 2 videos on my
love
YouTube
it.
channel.
Yeah, we'll include those in the show notes for sure, so people can check them out. Yeah.
But I have my life by my inner voice always. I've always followed my inner voice. I've never followed the voice of the crowd. And I've never let other people determine what I should do. Because as I was growing up, my mother always trusted my judgment. She never tried to impose her will on me. And she always said, you'll know what's best to do. I'm sure you'll know the best path that you're meant to take. And she really felt that I would always know what I was meant to do. And she trusted
That's amazing.
my judgment very much. Yeah.
That is incredible. Yeah. A lot of people that I've talked to on the show and just in life, parental expectations are a huge component of your career choice and your life choices and all of that. So to have that sort of carte blanche from your mom is it's so empowering.
Yes, my mother was an extremely broad-minded person.
Yeah.
Extremely broad-minded, a very free spirit. And she had incredible challenges in her life because she came alone from Vienna during the war. And she lost everyone in her family during the Nazis' occupation of Vienna. So she had a very hard life and she met all the challenges. And she brought us up in the best way she possibly could. So I always felt extremely close to my mother and I felt great compassion for what she had gone through in her own life, which was really unbelievable.
Wow. Yeah. Yeah. Wow. Okay. So, I mean, there's so much more that I want to ask you about, but I know it's late there. So I know that you have 2 books that are incredible. Do you want to talk about them a little bit? And I know you have a 3rd one coming out. Can you tell us a bit about that one?
Well, my first book was The Contribution of Maharshi's Vedic Science to Complete Fulfillment in Life. I wrote that in England while I lived in the meditating community. It has over 100 quotations by Maharshi. It goes into all the different aspects of the Vedic knowledge, Vedic cognition, all the different aspects that Maharshi's brought out about Transcendental Meditation, its advanced programs, Maharshi Ayurveda, Vedic cognition, Vedic civilization, Vedic education. It goes into all the different aspects of the Vedic knowledge. So that book is about 220 pages or something. And it contains over 100 quotations by Maharshi. My second book is Pilgrimage on the Path of Love. It's a novel I wrote mainly in the Himalayas. I wrote a lot of it in India, in the forest. I went to the forest in the early morning. I sat in the trees in the forest while the sun was streaming through the trees, and I wrote this book. And this book is about a woman who goes alone to India, and after many challenges and soul-stirring experiences, she emerges triumphant with a much deeper understanding of the meaning of life and the essence of true love. So in this book, there is a romance. There is someone that she loves. He's a Lama. He's on the spiritual path. And she knows that she can't really have a relationship that lasts with someone who's a Lama. But she still nurtures the desire to be with him. And it talks about how their relationship what happens in their relationship. And it also talks about the beauty of the Himalayas and all the people she meets add another dimension of knowledge to her awareness of who she really is and what life is all about. So it combines these different elements, the elements of different cultures. There are 10 different cultures in the book, and it weaves them all into a pattern of self-knowingness, self-knowledge, which evolves as the book progresses. So it's about a spiritual journey. And
that sounds so good. Yes. Let me just ask you, where in the Himalayas, like what city were you in?
I was up in Manali. It's very high in the Himalayas.
Okay.
And I was in Manali, and then I went from Manali to Ladakh, and I went to the highest peaks of the Himalayas. And I went over the Rohtang Pass. It took 3 days to get from Manali to Ladakh. And I traveled by bus. Yeah. And it was one of the most amazing journeys I've ever taken. I describe it completely in the book. So it's a beautiful description of the journey. So anyone who's interested in Himalayan journeys and Tibetan Buddhism, which I was introduced to just by accident.
Being there.
I was introduced to this because I was in that midst. And it was a beautiful experience. And it's all in the book. And many other aspects are in the book about human love and divine love, material wealth and spiritual wealth, and many different aspects of the spiritual journey.
Yeah, that's amazing. I don't know if I mentioned this to you, but when I was in my undergrad, I studied in Dharamsala and was in Tibet for a little while during that whole program. So that's why I was asking, like, where you were. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. You went to Tibet?
It was incredible. Yeah, I think we were like the last group that was really permitted access to Tibet at the time. It was 2007. But yeah, we were in Dharamsala, and then we went to Kathmandu, and then into Lhasa, and then into like kind of the more remote Tibet, and then we backtracked. But it was such an incredible area. That whole region is so dense with history and spirituality. It's like you feel it when you're there. So yeah. I love the image of you riding in the forest. I can see you doing that.
Yeah.
And what's your third book?
My third book is called The Secret of Creative Abundance, Alignment with Our Spiritual Nature.
And that is due out. So is there a date yet, or?
Well, I'm just finishing the last few chapters, and I'm doing so many other things at the moment because I'm doing my podcast, my YouTube channel, and writing articles at the same time. So I've taken a break from writing the book, but the book was almost finished, and I hope to finish it this year, and I hope to offer it for publication. So I have to devote my time to that because I'm pulled in so many directions with the schedule for my YouTube. I try to put 2 new videos every week, and then my podcast, I also have to put new podcasts.
Yeah.
So there's so many different aspects that I'm involved in right now. Before I didn't have the YouTube when I was writing, but now I do have the. So yeah, I want to finish that book. It only has 1 or 2 more chapters left, and then I shall offer it publication, and that will be my third book. And I'm also writing my memoir.
Great.
The story of my life in India, which was quite unusual, as you can probably imagine.
Yes.
Experience.
Oh, I love it.
Because I've been here almost 20 years. And especially when I first moved all my luggage here, what happened then was quite unpredictable. So I am writing my memoir as well. So that's my 4th book. So yeah.
So you're busy.
Yeah.
Okay, well.
And then on top of it, people are thinking of asking me to teach here in India. So, if I want to teach Tianwen in Rishikesh or something. So now I have even more things.
But that would be great. That would be amazing. Yes. Yeah. So you have a lot to do, and you've been so generous with your time. I have about 4 rapid fire. You don't have to think about it too much. Just quick questions to wrap up. Okay. So, and if you go off, that's okay. What is the best career advice you've ever been given?
To do what makes you happy. Do what makes you happy. That's the best career advice. Follow your heart, follow your inner voice, and do what makes you happy. And if you're doing something and you really don't like it, you should really question why you're actually doing it, because if it's not bringing you fulfillment, there may be something else which will be much better for you to do. And don't base it on money, base it on your feelings, because your feelings will really determine how much you can put into that career goal.
Love it. What is the best life advice you've ever been given?
the same thing.
I was going to say you kind of answered it, but
follow your heart intuition. The intuition is the voice of your heart. And actually, I just made a tape on enlivening your intuition, and it said, if prayer is you talking to God, intuition is God talking to you. And Dr. Wayne Dwyer said that.
Yeah.
He said, intuition is God talking to you. So you should be more in touch with your inner self. And meditation helps you to become more in touch with the deeper levels of your own being. And it helps you to enliven your vision. So this is a value of meditation. And I'd say for your life, take a path to develop your consciousness, because consciousness is fundamental. Without consciousness, we couldn't perceive, we couldn't appreciate, we couldn't experience anything. So if you do something to develop your consciousness, you will take care of every aspect of your life. It's like a gardener who waters the root, and every aspect of the plant flourishes. If you enliven your consciousness, your whole life will begin to unfold and blossom into more and more fulfillment. So I'd say take care of your consciousness.
I love that analogy. I love that. What is the best way for someone to start meditating if they're completely new to it, have no history in it at all? What is the best way for them to?
They should just go to a lecture. I can only recommend Transcendental Meditation.
Sure.
It's the only meditation I've done. I just say go to a lecture, keep an open mind. You don't have to believe in it. There's no change in lifestyle. We don't ask you to change your diet. It's sitting comfortably in a chair with your eyes closed and practicing a scientifically verified technique. So I just say if they have no experience, don't try to learn from the computer. If somebody puts something on the computer, this is the mantra, then don't try to learn from a computer. Don't try to learn from a book. You learn personally and personal instruction. And the instruction is given based on your experience. It's a very subtle thing to learn to meditate. You should learn from a qualified teacher, and then you'll be sure the technique will work for you. So don't take chances with meditation. Don't try to sidestep the whole thing and learn from a book or something like that. It won't be the original teaching, and you might have some bad effect from it. And then you'll say, I've had no effects from it. You have to learn from a qualified instructor, and just open your mind and go to a lecture on it and see what you feel. See how you feel. If you feel like you want to do it, go ahead. It's not a great risk. It's something that's very valuable for life, but you must follow your own feeling about it. That's all.
Yeah. And my last question, which has absolutely nothing to do with, it has a little bit to do with what we've talked about, but I'm just curious because you've traveled so much and I'm always interested in learning. What is the best travel hack that you have, or from your globetrotting, what is the number one travel hack that you've learned?
I don't really have any travel hacks.
No travel hacks?
No, actually, I've gone through a lot. And I travel light. I would say travel light. I've always traveled with too much luggage because as a writer and then on top of it, my sitar is in a fiberglass case. And all these years I have to travel with. My sitar weighs about 9 kilos or something. So the thing is, and then on top of it, I have tambour. But anyway, I won't speak about those things. I've had to pare down my books so many times. I've given away so many of my books because I couldn't travel with them anymore.
Yeah.
And traveling light makes a huge difference. It saves your back and it saves your purse when you get to the check-in counter.
Yeah.
Weigh your luggage.
Thank you so much, Barbara. You've been a wonderful guest. Thank you so, so much.
My pleasure. I always enjoy speaking to new friends.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for tuning in to this week's episode. I'm so grateful for your precious time and energy. And if anything resonated with you, please feel free to share with a friend and subscribe. If you're interested in career coaching, I would love to hear from you. Email me at Courtney@resume-careers.com and follow me on Instagram at Courtney Austin Page. Thank you so much and see you next week.